Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the territory of the signatories of Treaty 6, and I acknowledge the Métis people who share a deep connection to this land. I'm Lori Sigurdson, the NDP critic for seniors, continuing care and home care, and also the MLA for Edmonton Riverview. I'm joined today by Samir Kayande, Alberta NDP critic for Fiscal Responsibility and MLA for Calgary Elbow, Gary Savard, an Alberta senior, and Alberta NDP leader Rachel Notley. We have come here today to talk about the detrimental impact of the affordability crisis on Albertans, and especially on some of the most vulnerable in our communities. As our population ages, the challenges facing seniors in this province have become even more urgent, particularly regarding affording their basic needs while many are on fixed incomes. Adding in the soaring cost of utilities, groceries, and an unexpected expense they may face the cruel reality of choosing between the essentials. The UCP has repeatedly cut funding for vital seniors services and neglected to properly support the needs of seniors in Alberta while prioritizing bigger gifts for themselves. Seniors deserve better than inadequate patchwork solutions from this government. I'd like to introduce Gary Savard, lead organizer at Greater Edmonton Alliance for the Common Good. Gary?
Thank you, Lori, for the introduction. Seniors face many affordability issues on a day-to-day basis, with high electricity rates, higher grocery costs, uncapped insurance rates make day-to-day living on a fixed income a real challenge. Many of us also no longer have coverage through the Alberta Blue Cross for seniors' drug plan, leaving them without drug coverage and having to look for and pay for a drug coverage plan. And now, to further add to our expenses, we are required to renew our driver's license every 2 years after the age of 75, a reduction of 5 years from the previous age of 80. Without coverage, many end up in hospital when they skip doses or don't take their life-saving medicines because they cannot afford to. And this costs our healthcare system much more. They also eliminated the Seniors Advocate Office in 2019, leaving many seniors without accessible support systems. We're also on edge about the restructuring of our healthcare systems and anxious about what that would mean for continuing care facilities, where costs are also increasing. And finally, we face the threat of the UCP government pulling Alberta out of the Canada Pension Plan. We need the peace of mind and security that CPP gives us. We are not willing to take risks at this stage of our lives. All seniors should be able to count on the health and continuing care systems to receive the level of care we need, regardless of our ability to pay. We should be able to live out our lives in dignity. As the number of seniors in this province continues to grow, we need the right supports in place to support them.
Thank you for being here, Gary, and thank you for your advocacy on behalf of seniors in Alberta and across the country. I'll now pass things over to Samir to share more about the UCP's pattern of broken promises.
Thank you very much, Lori, and Gary as well. It's been over 6 months since the election, and Albertans are getting used to the sad reality that this UCP government will continue breaking its promises. Right now, electricity prices in Alberta saw the highest spike in the country this year. Insurance fees continue to rise without any cap. Inflation has impacted the cost of basic necessities, including groceries and household supplies. And instead of making good on their promise to make life more affordable for Albertans, Danielle Smith and the UCP are ready to renege on the very first commitment they made during the election campaign, to give Albertans a break and cut personal income taxes. As a finance critic, I've been carefully watching to see any evidence that this tax cut was coming into effect. When I asked about the government's timelines for implementation in the legislature, the finance minister wouldn't give Albertans a straight answer. Yesterday, the premier confirmed that she's broken her promise. She said that the tax cut would come sometime during the next 4 years. To speak more about that, I'm going to pass it over to Rachel.
Thank you so much, Samir. And I will be blunt. The bottom line is this: Danielle Smith lied to the people of Alberta. during the election. And let me just back up for just a second here. We know that many Albertans are struggling with affordability issues, and probably nobody is doing that overall more than seniors. And there's a whole range of ways in which those affordability challenges impact seniors. Now, while we had a series of proposals in the last campaign to support seniors, which I think would have been more helpful, Danielle Smith and the UCP claimed to Albertans during that campaign that they had an answer, and they had two answers specifically for seniors. One, that they were going to put in place a tax cut, and two, that they were going to put in a whole bunch of fee cuts to help seniors. As Samir said, it is now clear that she lied to seniors about both of those things. During the election, she committed to implementing a tax cut on January 1st, 2024. That tax cut would have delivered to Albertans over $260 million in affordability relief between January 1st and March 31st of 2024. That's not happening. And now, in addition, months before the budget is announced, she's also hedging on her commitments in the long term. Instead of making good on her promise, she's now claiming, as Samir said, that this is going to be phased in at some point over the next 4 years. Let me be clear. She promised to Albertans an annualized saving of over $1 billion a year. And now she's telling them she's not exactly sure when it's going to happen. Fact is, Albertans need help now. Alberta seniors need help now. People across this province cannot keep up with rising rent and skyrocketing utility bills. Some might not make it 4 months, let alone be able to wait for a phased plan over 4 years. Danielle Smith lied to Albertans. In addition, there is no indication at all on the horizon that seniors will be receiving the fee cuts that were also promised to them during the election. This pattern of broken promises is costing Albertans, and Alberta seniors in particular, more and more everywhere they go, no matter what they do. Yet, in the first legislative session that the UCP had, they did find the time to make the changes that would ensure that they could receive bigger gifts from lobbyists to sit under their Christmas tree, and that they could also pay more to elite friends and insiders without anybody checking in on just how high those salaries go. The UCP and Danielle Smith need to apologize to Albertans for making promises during the election, big promises, day one promises, that they actually had no intention of keeping. Danielle Smith owes Albertans an apology for that kind of flagrant abuse of trust. Albertans want a government, need a government that they can rely on to do what they say they will. They deserve a government that also cares. They deserve a government they can trust to keep their word. So thank you, and we're happy to take any questions folks might have.
Thank you. Just a reminder, if you're on Zoom, it's the raise hand function. If you're on the phone, it's *9 to get into the question queue. We'll start with questions in the room.
Hi, Catherine Gurkowski with Alberta Today. Maybe for Mr. Savard or whoever wants to speak to this, but I'm wondering, it's always a challenge to manage a budget on a fixed income. How does this current affordability crisis compare with past years?
Well, 8 years ago, GIA was involved in setting up a seniors program that brought relief so the seniors could stay in their homes longer. So those things included like yard work, care, cooking within the house. So that's 8 years ago. We've gone far beyond that now, where now seniors are looking at, okay, do I get my prescriptions this month, or do I pay the heat, or do I buy food? These are the choices where seniors are making now to get by. So that's where we need some relief. Seniors need relief so they can continue to live a life with dignity.
And I believe Ms. Sigurdson had mentioned that a patchwork isn't going to cut it. Is there one one thing that you're looking for? Is it to just bring in what they promised to do? What would help out, do you think?
Well, certainly we do want them to bring in what they promised. And of course, we know that the UCP has cut funding to seniors agencies, grants. It's got repeatedly, it seems like they've been attacking seniors since they've been elected. So we very much want them to value seniors and make sure that they're supported. We're all in an affordability crisis, but folks on fixed incomes have more challenges than others, and seniors are on fixed incomes, so the UCP really needs to step up and support them. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go now to the phone, and Janet, your line should be open. Just please say who you'd like you direct your question to.
Notley?
Yep.
Several of your members were raising concerns yesterday about the questions about Dr. John Cowell's involvement in the hiring and firing of Tina Henshaw by AHS. And now Marguerite Tressler says the investigation into Cowell is over. I couldn't find any evidence, and she was dismissed correctly. And also he's not in my purview anymore because he's not working in that role anymore. What do you make of that letter?
Well, I'm a little worried about the timing of it, and I'm a little worried, Janet, about the fact that, you know, in the last few weeks, the Premier's office has essentially embarked upon a very clear plan to replace the current Ethics Commissioner. So I think that that is troubling, and the fact that there were active investigations around allegations relating to not only John Cowell, but the fact that there were allegations that John Cowell had been taking direct instructions from Danielle Smith around the employment of Dina Henshaw. All of that raises some very significant concerns to me. Now, the Conflict of Interest Act is very narrow in scope, but the allegations that were raised by the physicians are very real and very serious. So regardless of whether the Ethics Commissioner did or didn't find that there was a breach, that doesn't really matter. The Ethics Commissioner did not contradict the assertions that were laid out by Dr. Tailfeathers, by the other physicians. And what we see is a disturbing pattern of politicization around what should be independent and public service-based hiring for people who are best qualified to provide care to Albertans, and in this case, best qualified to provide important public health services to vulnerable Indigenous communities. So again, Danielle Smith put her very clear political priorities over the best health outcomes of vulnerable Indigenous communities, and we cannot afford that kind of decision-making in our healthcare system. We just can't.
Do you have a follow-up, Janet?
I do. I thought what was really interesting about that letter is that the Ethics Commissioner said, well, I got a complaint about Danielle Smith, but I'm not going to look into that because of what I found out about Dr. Cowell. I'm wondering if that raises any questions about the Ethics Commissioner's process of looking into this issue.
You know, it's hard to say because there's so much of this that is still kept behind closed doors. And quite honestly, I'm very concerned because, as I say, the Premier's office has embarked upon a plan to find a new Ethics Commissioner. And so I can't say. What I can say is that the evidence that is laid out in the letters by the physicians is troubling. And so we will be reaching out to the Public Service Commissioner to see if there are additional steps that can be taken. But overall, you know, whether we're talking Preston Manning being invited in to give advice about public health, or whether we're talking about the wholesale firing of someone like Dina Henshaw because too many of Danielle Smith's extreme base don't like a government that cares about public health, both of these decisions reveal a government that should be kept farther away from decision-making in our public health system, not allowed to get closer. And everything they've done so far is to open the doors for more and more politicized decision-making, which is going to undermine the overall public health of Albertans.
Thank you, Janet. We'll do one more quick pass for questions. If you could raise your hand if you're on the Zoom, *9. If you're on the phone, check the room here. Room is good. Seeing none, that concludes our press conference for today.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.